Hello everyone and welcome to this new part. We're here in part number 8 and we are building an application with React for managing book libraries. Now in previous part 7, we have worked on the upload image for author section and we have added some styles to our author list and the author form section. Now we can upload an image. For example, let's add a new author test doe and choose any image from our system. As you can see, we can view it here quickly and add a text. Now I can save the image and it will be displayed directly. It will be displayed automatically here in the list. Now I have persisted this author to the firestore database along with an image that is saved to Google storage. Now also we added the delete functionality. We actually modified the delete functionality to delete the author at the same time remove the image from Google storage. Now if I click delete, it will be removed successfully. As you can see, the image, before saving it to firebase, we're resizing the image to 250 and 250. Now in this part we'll be working on the book photos section. In this section we'll have a box where we can drag from our computer photo and drop them in the box. We are allowed to drop multiple photos that will be uploaded to our Firebase server and displayed below in a gallery style. So we can upload multiple photos for a single book. Let's start by creating the box style. If we go to our book photo, here in our book details folder, remember that we have created a book detail component. The book detail component is responsible in displaying all this page you are viewing here. Now the book details use the route to create routing for different parts of the book, from the general information here to the author section to the photo section. So here the general information is a section of the full book state. So we have a book state and for each section we have part of this book state. For example, the authors have the author state that once you add or delete author, this component, the book authors, will update the parent book state. The parent book state is using a reducer thanks to the use reducer function provided by React to allow other child component to manipulate the book state using actions. So back to our book photos here. Let's add some element. I will add a div with a class Dropbox. Inside the div will be a paragraph that say drag images here. Inside the Dropbox I'll create a label that will be for image upload, drop images here, and there will be an input of type file. The name will be the same as the ID, image upload, or we can say images upload. Alright, now we need to hide the input file, hide the visibility. We want it to still be active but hidden from the user. So now if I save and show you what we want here, so here is the label and here is the input file. This is the input file and the label here. Now as you can see, if I click on the label, I can activate the input file. That's why I want to hide the input file from visibility and style the drop image here to be a box that you can interact with it. Because the label, once you add the attribute HTML4, alright, with the ID of an input. The label now, the click on the label will activate the input click. So I will add a class to the input with a class hidden or visually hidden, and I will create a global style for this class so I can be able to use it anywhere I need. So I'll go to my style.css and add here a visually hidden class that will have position absolute important. The height will be 1 pixel, width 1 pixel, overflow will be hidden, and the clip will be rect 1 pixel, 1 pixel, 1 pixel, and 1 pixel. So this will make it hidden on the screen. It will position it absolute on the top far left of the screen, or in case it is inside a relative element on the corner of the element as a 1 pixel dot. We can also add opacity 0. So this will hide the element. Now we can make sure the element is hidden by visiting the browser, and as you can see, there's no trace of the element. If I click but on the Dropbox, it will activate our hidden input file. So this is the behavior we need. Now let's style the label. I need to import first, import styled from styled components. Then I'll create a component. I can name it styled label. It will be an actual label. Now this element will contain the style. We want to create a box with a width, let's say 300 pixel, all right, and the height 300 pixel. It has a border of light gray with 2 pixel width dotted, or I don't know if they're dashed, and margin all around 20 pixels. Okay, now I need to use this component styled label and replace my label here with the new component. I keep the HTML4. This need to be capital in order for React to treat it as a custom component. Now if we'll check, all right, now we need to change the display to a block. I can reduce the height to 200. All right, and I can make the display flex to center the text inside. Flex, align items center, justify content center too. All right, here is our box. I can increase the gray of the border because it's too light. Let's make it CCC, much better. So here, this box will be our Dropbox. So we can drop from our computer to this box, and we'll process the images, resize them, and prepare them to be uploaded to our Firebase storage. Now this Dropbox, to accept multiple image, first we need to add to the input file multiple attribute. This allows the file to accept multiple image, and we'll add a function to the onChange event. So it will be called once the onChange event fire. It will be handle files, and we'll create this function here, constant handle files, which will be equal to a function that will receive the event. Now here we can console.log e.target.files. Now if you go back to our browser and open the console, we have here an error concerning the class here. It should be class name. In React we can use the keyword class. It is reserved. So if I refresh, I'll get rid of the error. Now let's upload. As you can see here, the Dropbox image doesn't seem to be clickable because there's no any queue. Let's make the cursor pointer to give a cue for the user that this is clickable. So now if I click, I can select multiple image. Let's select, for example, 3, and I get a file list of 3 files. Let's work on the drag and drop feature. In HTML5, now we have 3 events: the on drag enter, the on drag enter, on drag over, and on drop. These 3 events allow us to create our drag and drop features in HTML5, and they are supported by the majority of modern browsers. So let's start by activating the on drag over. On drag, let's say enter, and we'll create a function handler drag enter. So this function will be created similar to handle files, which also accept an event. Once we grab a file and enter the box with the file, what we need to do is add a class to the label that will change the border. So we'll create a state with the use state React function, import use state from React, and here we'll create we'll grab from the use state 2 constant. One is drag enter and set drag enter. We'll get this by calling the use state, and the default value will be false. So the drag enter, we'll use it as a prop. Drag enter will be equal to drag enter. Now we need to detect the drag enter. Here we can easily detect if there's a drag enter prop, if it's true, using our styled component. We can use the interpolation syntax to create a function here that will get the props. Now we can destruct the drag enter and add a condition. If drag enter is true, what we will do is add additional styles. So to add additional styles, we'll also need to grab the CSS function. Now CSS function allow us to add additional style inside a function like this. Now if drag enter, we'll change the border color to something darker gray. Let's say 666. Now I need to set the drag enter. Once the handle drag enter is activated, I need to set drag enter to true. Now using the event, I need to stop propagation and to prevent default. If I don't stop propagation and prevent default, once I drag the image to the box, the default behavior is the browser will display the image in a new tab. So now I will stop this behavior from happening. Here I made a mistake. The on drag enter event should be attached to the label, not the input file, because the label is our visual queue for dropping. And I'll add on drag leave. The drag leave will set the drag enter to false. So it will be here drag leave. Now we still have the on drag over, which in its turn also we need to stop its default behavior. On drag over. I will use the same functionality as on drag enter. Now we need to activate this 3 event. We need to send them a function that at least stops the propagation and prevents the default behavior. If we don't do this, some browser will open the image in a new tab or will replace the current URL with the image. So this is necessary to add the prevent default and stop propagation for all the drag event. Now we still have one more event to handle, is the on drop. Alright, we'll create a function handle drop. Now similar to the other function here, it will also prevent the default propagation, and the event drop will send us the event as a parameter in the function. This parameter contains the transferred files. We can grab this transferred file with data transfer. Inside of it there will be the files. Now this the files contain the list of files. Let's console.log the result of this operation and try it in the browser. Let's try to drag 3 files. Here I get an object, a file list that contain 3 files. Same way if we want to select them manually. It's actually the same object. Now that we are receiving the correct file list object, we are ready to the next step, which is resizing each file to an acceptable size for the web and prepare them to be saved to Firebase. Now, before proceeding with handling the files, let's refactor the Dropbox here label, the component that is responsible for dragging and dropping. Let's refactor it into a separate component. First, we go to our UI element and create a new file called Dropbox.js. It will be a functional component that will return the input with the style, all this HTML here. Let's export the file. Export default Dropbox. Now we need also to add the style, the styled component library. Plus we also need to add the actual component that is used. Plus the event handlers with the also use state, we need it there, the use state here, along with the all this code actually. write the function with a C. And let's remove all these elements that we are not using now. What else? We need to remove all of this. And we'll import the Dropbox from the UI. Now before importing the Dropbox, we need to add it to the index. Now once we have it in the index file in the UI, we can easily import it here. Import Dropbox from, we need to get back to folder, and we point the path to the UI folder, which will automatically detect the index and import the file. Now Dropbox, we can use it here as a custom component. Alright, so our work will be here in the handle drop. Once the onDrop has been fired, the handle drop will be called, and we need to transfer these files to the parent component book photos. So here we need to receive this file to be able to work on them. So the responsibility of the Dropbox component is just to create a box that is droppable and receive the dropped item and send them back to its parent. So the parent need to send the child Dropbox component a function that the child will call and send to it as a parameter the list of files. Here we supposed to receive a function, let's say on files. Alright, this function here, once we have received the files, we'll call it with the received files. So here the book need to create this function, constant on files. It will receive the files list, and here we can work on them. So we can console.log the files. Now in the Dropbox, we'll keep the console that logs the files. So if we test now, we expect to see on the console printed 2 times the list of files. The first time is from the handle drop function inside the Dropbox component. The second time is inside the book photo, once the on file has been called in the Dropbox. So the on file, it will be passed to Dropbox. So let's test. Now if we drag some images to the Dropbox, first the hover work. Now if we drop the images, we'll see the 2 file list, which everything is working as expected. Now let's clean the console.log here. Here in our book photos, we are getting the list of files that has been uploaded or dropped by the user. So the next step is to resize these files before uploading them to Firebase storage. Now concerning the resizing of the image, if you followed my previous part 7 of this video series, you remember that we have created a function that handles the image resizing. Here we have 3 functions. There is the main function, the resize image, which create a canvas and use the square center crop to crop the image to fit in the canvas size, which was 250 and 250. Now, for our situation now, we don't need to crop the image, we just need to resize it in order not to exceed a certain size that we restrict. I will limit the size to, let's say, 2000 pixel maximum for either the width or height. So we need to do some changes here. We need to create a function. This function actually crops the image and force it to fit into the provided size and crop the exceeded area of the image. What we need a function that just resizes the image proportionally given a certain restriction. So first thing we will do, we will export this function into their own file so that we can be able to reuse them in other component. So I will copy these three functions. I will cut them from here and create a new file in my functions folder. Besides the string fn, I'll create a file called imagefn.js. This file will contain these three functions. Now the first function is the create image. This function actually take a base64 file and convert it into an image. So we can add a comment here. All right. The square center crop, as the name suggests, it resizes the image to fill an area that is specified here in the size parameter. So here we'll check the image whether it's a portrait or a wide. If it's a wide image, we'll work on the height to make the height fit the size provided here in the parameter, and we'll center it in the square which has the width and height of the parameter size. So for example, so if this is our box, and let's say it's, all right, this is the restriction box. All right, this is what the restrictions are. All right, so if I get an image, all right, this image need to be restricted to this box. In our previous video, what we were doing is resize the image, resize it proportionally till one of the sides fill the box exactly. Then we center the image, all right, and we create a canvas that is similar size. Here is, let's say, our canvas in other color. So we create a canvas with the same width and height of the restriction. Now we grab the image, we put it in the canvas, and we center it. We center it inside the canvas, and we take a screenshot of the canvas. So the final image will be here, the area of the canvas. Now what we want to do is different for this time. Imagine that we have the photo, all right, and we have a restriction here. This is the restriction box. Now we need to resize the image to contain the box, not fill the box. So we resize it here to contain the box. This is the difference. Once it is contained in the box, all right, we'll create a canvas that is as the same size of the image. So the canvas now will be resized to have the same size of the image, and then we'll take a screenshot of the canvas. Okay, we'll generate a blob from this canvas. So this is the difference here. So we'll have to create another function for the other functionality, the resizing, and this will be for cropping. First, let me export these three functions. Here we need to export the image resize. Now for the other function, which I add underscore at the beginning of the name to signify that this is like a private function. Alright, now I will import the resize image here in my book authors where I was using it. And here I'm already using it with the author.photo. Now one thing has been changed, or will it change, is concerning the parameter here. It needs to be sent with the resize image, and we'll set the canvas to this size, and we'll send it to the cropper function, the function that crops the image. Alright, this is the change now we need to do. Here we'll give the size we need. Now I can make sure that everything is working in the author section by uploading an image. Let's create a test author, and let's choose an image like this one. Now if I add, it should be the same as the old one that we have added, which is the same. Now, perfect. One more thing I want to add, that the resize image will actually force the image, even if it's lesser than the restricted size, to fill the box. So let's say we uploaded this image here and it is smaller than the box. It will be resized always to fill the box. But in our case, if the image is smaller than the box, we leave it as it is. The restriction acts as a maximum size. Now this is smaller, we leave it as it is, and we'll create the canvas, okay, to be the same size of the image. This is it. Now here we'll create another function. We name it function resizer, which will take, of course, an image and a size similar to the crop function, and I will rename actually the crop function to cropper. Here resizer, of course, will be an internal function. This function, of course, will return the same coordinate, but here is the difference in the way it calculates the dimension of the image. We'll check if the image is a wide image, then we'll proceed with certain calculation. If it's a portrait image, then we'll proceed with another type of calculation. Now here we have another check in case if it's wide, if the width is lesser than the restriction. Now we'll leave the image. So if image dot natural width is larger than the restriction, then we'll proceed to resize the wide image. Now, since the image is wide, we need the height to be the same size as the restriction. Now, from this size, we'll calculate the width proportionally. So here the height will be, we'll multiply the size by the image width, image dot natural width, and divided by the image dot natural height. Now, if the image is portrait, we'll check the image dot natural height. If it's larger than the restriction, then we'll set the height to the restriction, okay, which by default is set to the restriction, and we'll calculate the width of the image based on the new height. So the same size multiplied by image dot natural width divided by emg dot natural height, and we return the coordination of the image, the x, y, the width and height in an array. So now here the job of the image resize is to determine whether the user need to crop or resize the image. So we need to allow the user to specify the behavior of the resize image. Here we'll allow the user to add a Boolean parameter. Here we'll create a parameter that is named crop, which by default is true. Based on the crop parameter, we'll determine whether we'll use the cropper or the resizer. So crop, if crop is true, we'll use the cropper, else we'll use the resizer function, which will also take the same parameter, image and size. One more thing also we need to change concerning the canvas. In the case of cropping, we are setting the canvas to the size of the restriction. But in case we don't want to crop the image, we need to set the canvas to the new sizes, the new width and height that is sent by the resizer. So here also we'll calculate the canvas width and height based on the result of this operation here. So we'll check if crop, the canvas width will be the same size as the restriction, else it will be the new width sent by the resizer function. The same for the height, which will be here h. There is a typo here in the parameter value, it should be true. So let's test to make sure also what we have done is working as expected. Let me reload and we'll add a test, and we'll select the same image we have here to make sure it is cropped as expected. Perfect. Here it is, our image. Now we are ready to use this function in our book photo here in this section, the photo section, to loop through each image and resize it appropriately. Now here the user can drop images or select images from his computer. We are receiving the image in this component on file function, and we have prepared the function for resizing the image. Before applying the resize functionality, what I want to do is once the user drag this photo here, I need to display a list of the photo here to be able to preview them here. So first I need to do some changes. Here the no photo available need to be on top. This will be the list of uploaded photo, and below the dropper we will list the images that are currently uploading to the server. So quickly here I replace the list to the top, and I'll add the divider that I can get from my UI library, which we have created in the previous video, part 7. Now I can here use the divider to visually have some kind of divider between both sections. Alright, now once I receive the list of images from the user, what I will do is loop through them with files dot for each. Alright, I will get the file, I will extract a base 64 from each file and save it in a local state. So I need to create a local state here. And I will name this state emg z with s and set emgs, which will be the result of use state with an empty array. At the beginning, it will be an empty array. Then we'll add to this array once we receive files from the user, which is here. Now for each file, we'll create a reader, a JavaScript file reader, new file reader. Now with the file reader, we can extract the image from a file with different format. Here, we need to extract the URL format, the base64 that can be assigned as an image source. So here, we'll use the reader.read as data URL. This is an asynchronous operation, so we'll need to wait for it. So I will listen to the event that tell me when the file is ready, which is reader.onLoad. Here, once the event onLoad is fired, meaning the file is ready, it will call the function specified here with a parameter of the actual file. Plus here I need to send it a file. So here we'll name it F or E. It's more of an event. And in the event there is the actual base64 file. I can push it to my state here. So I will use the set emgs. I will send it a function. By sending a function to setEmg, I can receive the old emgs and use it to generate a new array from the old one. The new array will hold all the current items inside of the old emgs and will add the new element, which will be e.target.results. So e.target.results will contain the base64 image. Now I am ready to display these images in my browser. So using the emgs state, I can loop through them here. emgs.map, which return the single item, and I can create an image and use the source, the emg for the source of the image. Alright, now if I save, oh, here I made a mistake. It should be use state. Now if I save and I try to drop or upload several images from my computer, let's select 3 images here and drop them to the Dropbox. I got an error, files.forEach is not a function. So here it seems the files is an iterator, but that doesn't support the for each. Instead of using here the for each on the file, I can use a for loop for file in files, for example, and I will grab this code and put it in the for. Okay, for let file in files. Another mistake, reader.onLoad will actually, you need to assign to it a function. So you assign to the onload property of reader a function which will be used once the reader is ready. Now here, after testing, it seems that you need to use the off for arrays. For our case here, so this is an iterable object and it works with the off to get each file object. Plus, here the result is without s. Alright, so now it should work. So if we try to now add images, alright, we have them here, the 3 images. We haven't specified the width, so here we need to specify the width to, let's say, 300. All right, or 200. All right, 150. All right, so here is our images. Let's say 120. Once we have the image here displayed, we'll immediately start with the upload process. Plus, we need to disable here the Dropbox until the upload for all the images has been finished. And we need to add a progress bar for each image, telling us how much time it needs till it will be finished. Once it is uploaded, we'll remove the image from here, and it will be displayed in the book gallery. This error here, it is complaining about the key. Later on, we'll add the key once we finish with the structure of the HTML of the image display. Now here on the on file, we are looping through the received files from the user, and for each file, using the file reader, we are extracting the base64 URL from it. So here on the onload, it is a callback function where we have the base64 file. Here in this function, we will continue the procedure by first resizing each image and uploading it to Firebase. Now, since we need to add code inside the callback function, I prefer to refactor this function and make it use promise, first thing. Second, since this function is also used in the author form, it's the same process. What I will do is extract it to its own file, make it a reusable function in my image.fn file. So I'll grab this function here, since it already have the checking whether the file is an image or not. That is missing from our function here in our book photos. So I'll grab the function in my author form. And here I'll create a function that will be async. I will name it get base64 URL, which will take as a parameter a file, a single file, and process the file to extract from it the base64 file. So here, instead of return, I will throw an error. Only images are accepted. JPEG, GIF, PNGs. So this now will use the promise, so it need to return new promise. Now here we will run this code. Here what will happen, the reader will start the process of extracting the base64 file and will run the function that is assigned to the onload. This is the function. In its turn, this function will resolve with the actual file, the file. All right. So now let's export the get base64 URL and import it here in our author form. Get base64 URL from functions image.fn, and we'll use it here in the handle file, giving it the e.target.files 0. Now we can get rid of this line, and we'll make this function an async function which will await for the get base64 operation, which return a promise. Now once the promise has been resolved, we'll save it in a constant. We'll name the constant base64 URL, and here we'll grab everything inside the callback function. We'll put it after the await. So once the await is done and the promise return the base64 URL, we'll use it here to set the other photo to the base64 URL, and we'll remove all the other files which now we don't need anymore. So we can test to see everything is working as expected. So here in our author section, here it is, it's working fine. So it is setting the author as expected. Let's do the same process in the book photos. Here we'll import the get base64 URL from functions /image_fn, and we'll use it inside the loop here where we are looping the files object. So it will be used here and it will get the single file. Now we need to await for this function. To be able to use await, we need to be inside an async function. Here we can use await, and we'll assign the return value to a constant named base64 URL. We'll remove the code inside the callback function and put it after the await. Now once we get the base64 URL, we'll assign it to the array of images, which in its turn will display the image in the browser application. So we can make sure that everything is working as expected by going to the photos section and grabbing a bunch of images and dropping them in the box, and here we get the 3 images as expected. Now we're ready to resize the image. Now here we'll proceed with resizing the image using the function resize image that we have created in image_fn. Now resize image has, remember that we added an additional option to it, the crop true. Here we can specify the crop to false in order to resize the image without cropping it, and it will rely on the resizer this time instead of the cropper. The resizer will resize the image proportionally under a constriction size. So here we can use the image resizer like this, giving it 3 parameters. The first is the image, the base64 image. Next, the constriction as an integer. We'll restrict the image to 2000 maximum. The third parameter will be false. We don't want to crop the image. Now this operation is an async operation, so we'll await for it. And the result of this function will be saved into a constant called blob. Now for testing purposes, I will go to my image_fn and temporarily return an object that contains the blob plus the canvas. Why? Because I want to print the canvas on the screen to see the result of this operation, just temporary, for testing that it is working fine before going into the process of uploading it to Firebase. So here I will get an object with blob and the canvas, which I can assign it here to a division with an ID of canvas. Now, resize image, we forgot to import it from the image fn, so we'll add the import. Now, I will get it by the ID, but this is not a good solution. But here for testing quickly, I will use document.get element by ID canvas, and I will append a child, the canvas. Let me try it. So now if I reload and I will open the console, so let me drag any 3 images, and here is our images. I can see that each canvas does not exceed the restriction. So remember that we are setting the canvas dimension, the width and height, to the same dimension of the image. As we can see, the canvas is restricted to 2000, whether it's in height or in width. So it's working perfectly. Now let's remove the code that we are using for testing and the canvas here. Plus we'll go to our resize image function and return this time only the blob. Back in our book photos here, we only get the blob. Now, next we are ready to upload our image to Firebase storage. Now to save the image, first we'll create a constant that will contain the image path and name, which will name it image name. We'll store the image name inside a folder images / books / the image name, which will be a timestamp, so date.now. At the end we'll add the .jpg. Next we'll create a reference for our Firebase storage, so we'll import the Firebase from firebase/app. Here we firebase.storage.ref.child image name .put the blob image, and the second parameter will be an object of image metadata. One of them is content type, which will be image/jpeg. Remember that, if you remember here in our image fn file, here actually it is returning as a png, but we'll need to change the type to image/jpeg for the toBlob function. If we didn't specify a second parameter, by default it will generate a png image. So now we'll make it jpeg, and here we'll specify that the content of the image is jpeg. Now the put operation return an object, which will store it in a constant named upload task. This object contain the on method that allow us to track the progress of the upload and capture any error. So upload task.on. Now on take 4 parameters. The first parameter is the event name that we want to listen for. State changed. This is the first parameter. The second, third, and fourth parameter are a function. The first function will track the progress via a snapshot sent us by Google as a parameter for this function. Using the snapshot, we can get the total transferred byte and the remaining byte. So if you go back to our book authors, you'll see that we have here already made something similar. So we can grab this code here and paste it. We are getting the progress in percentage by dividing the transferred byte and the total byte multiplied with by 100. And we'll console.log the result of this operation. Now the second function will return any error in case there's an error. So we'll grab the old code from our previous video and paste it here. Here we are using a switch that will switch among the possible error code that could be returned. Two of these error codes that we are handling are the unauthorized and the unknown. Of course, there are more error codes. The last function will be run once the upload is complete. Here we can get the final result and continue the process knowing that the image has been uploaded successfully. So here to get actually, let's say the image URL, we can use the upload task .snapshot.ref .get download URL. This operation is an async operation, so we'll have to await for it. In order to be able to use await, we need an async function. Here we store the result in a constant called download URL, and we'll log it to the console to check that the image has been uploaded successfully. Now everything is ready, so let's give it a try. In our browser, I will reload the app and I will upload 3 images. Here I can see the progress for the images being displayed in the console. So as you can see, one image has been finished. We got the URL. We can open and see the URL in a new tab. Here it is. So if we save the image to our computer, we can see that the image has been resized not to exceed 2000 pixels. Now for the next step, we'll save the image to Firestore for the corresponding book we are editing. Now to save the image to Firestore after completing the upload of an image, we'll use again firebase dot firestore dot collection, the books collection dot document. We need now the specific book ID. To get the book ID here, we need to get it here in the props. Book photo is a child of book details. Now here in book details, we have the ID, which we can pass it to book photos. Now here we grab the ID and use it to grab this specific document. Then we need to update the document with the update function. The update function take an object with the properties that need to be updated. Here we need to update the property photos. Now similar to what we did for the book authors, we'll be using the array union function that is available inside the fields of Firestore. So from firebase dot firestore dot field value. Now inside the field value we have the array union, which add an item to an existing array. So here array union take the item that need to be added to the photos array. Here the item will be the image name, which contains the path and the name of the image, or I prefer the image full URL, which we can easily use it if we want to display the image for a book inside image tags. So we'll save the full URL. Now this operation is asynchronous, so we need to wait for it. Now once this operation is successfully done, what we want to do is update the book state that contains the book with the authors and photo. So here in our book details we have a state which is named book. Dispatch object allow us to modify this state using the useReducer function. Here we have some action that allow us to modify the state. We have the add author, the remove author, the set book, which allow us to set the entire state to an object. Now we add a new action. We name this action add photo, which will return similar to add author, which will return a new state that spread the old one and modify or override the photos attribute to contain all the old photos plus the new photo. Here photos, but in case state.photos does not exist, in case it's the first time we're adding a photo, we'll replace it with an empty array, because spreading an undefined property will return error. So here we have the add photo. Let's also add the case for the remove photo. Now the remove photo take a very similar object to the remove author. We'll spread the old state and we'll override now the photos with the old photos arrays that is filtered to remove the current photo. Here we are looping through the photos array with the filter, and we're checking for each item if the value of this item is different than the value of the action. If it's not different, if it's the same, we'll return true, so it will be filtered. In other way, it will not be available in the new returned array that is assigned to the photo property of the new state. Now what we need to do is send the book dispatch object to the book photos component. Now here we'll grab the dispatch object and we'll use it after we have successfully saved a photo to dispatch a new action of type add photo, and we'll send the photo, which will be the download URL. Now here for each loop we need to add a try catch in case any of these function, especially the async function, returns an error or throw an error. We need to catch it. Here in the try we'll put all this code, and here in the catch we'll console.log the error. Now if we try to upload photos, we'll expect that after the upload is successful for each photo to have the database updated and the state also for the book in the book details component also to be updated accordingly. So let's try to upload again some photos. First I will go to my console and delete the old photo we have uploaded previously. Now in my storage here I can see that I have a new books folder which contains these 3 images that we have uploaded previously. Now I need to remove them. Now I will go to my application and upload any 3 photos. Alright, now after uploading these 3 photos, I can check my component, the book details component, and verify that my state has been updated with the 3 photo. Here it is. Now I have the property photo with the 3 full URLs. Now I can work with this section of the state to publish here the photo in the list. Next I can go to my database and see that book which I am working on currently also have the 3 full URL for the 3 photo we have just uploaded, which is great. Mean everything is working as expected. The next step will be